Hey folks, welcome to the channel and thanks for tuning into this video. In the last video I put up, it was focused on the Gladiator and the benefits you get from the longer wheelbase and improvements you can make to the Gladiator to make it even more capable. In that video, I put up some clips of the shorter wheelbase SCX 24s trying to make certain climbs, and they were having a really hard time doing it, but the Gladiator, due to its longer wheelbase, was able to do it fairly easy. In one of those clips, I made a comment that I planned on doing some modifications to my green Deadbolt to give it some better capability to keep up with the Gladiator, and that's what this video is all about. I'm sure you can tell by looking at my Deadbolt, I gave it a stretch. When I first planned on doing the stretch on the Deadbolt, I wasn't planning on going quite as far as I did, but after I got started, I figured, you know what, if I'm going to stretch it, I'm going to stretch it good. A lot of times whenever people stretch their Deadbolt, they usually do it from the front. And basically all they're doing is removing the front lower links from the Deadbolt. And then they're removing their top 3-link wishbone setup from the top. They're taking that out, taking their lower front links from the Deadbolt, moving that up to the top. And then they're taking longer links to put down in the bottom. And those longer links are basically coming from either the C10, the Bronco, the Wrangler, or the Gladiator. Okay, right here you got the Deadbolt on the right, you got the Gladiator in the center, and you got the Bronco on the left. And the shorter wheelbase SCX 24s, they all have the same wheelbase, which is around 5.5 inches. And the Jeep Gladiator with the longer wheelbase, it's right around 6 inches. But if you look at the links on the Deadbolt, the front links are short and the rear links are quite a bit longer. As to where you go to the Bronco, which is basically, it is the exact same setup as what's on the C10s and the Wranglers. The front links and the rear links are, I don't know their exact measurements, but they're pretty close to the same length. And even though links are different lengths, as far as the Deadbolt, the fronts are shorter and the rears are quite a bit longer. On the Bronco, they're about the same length front to back. They both have the same wheelbase, which is around 5.5 inches. It's just that, again, the Deadbolt rear links are really long. The front links are really short. And on the Bronco, they're about the same length. And then when you go to the Gladiator, the front links on the Gladiator are the exact same as the Bronco and the C10, and so on and so on. What gives the Gladiator the really long wheelbase is the rear links only. Okay, so again, whenever I went to stretch my Deadbolt, all I was planning on doing, basically all you're doing, if you're just wanting to do the minimal stretch on the Deadbolt, the front end stretch, all you're really doing is replacing your upper and lower links from the Deadbolt from one of these, except for that one. That's also a Deadbolt. But basically, that's all you're doing. And if you wanted to, a lot of people, every time that people stretch their Deadbolt, they do it to a 4-link conversion, but you don't necessarily have to do a 4-link conversion. If you wanted to, you could take the 3-link wishbone setup from the Gladiator, the Bronco, the C10, etc. You could take that 3-link setup, you could put that on the top of your Deadbolt, and then you can take the bottom links from one of those other RCs and put on the bottom. And that's going to still give you, that's basically what you're doing whenever you stretch the Deadbolt. But what I decided to do is I already had high clearance links on my Deadbolt whenever I went to stretch it. So I just took my links from the Deadbolt that are on the rear, and they're quite a bit longer again. The rear stock links on the Deadbolt are a little bit longer than what's on the Broncos and the C10s. So basically what I did, I took my rear links from the Deadbolt and I moved them to the front. The 2 upper links here in the front, yesterday, they were the 2 upper links on the rear. Same for the bottom. And then on the rear, I had some leftover, or actually it was some links that I had set up for another RC. I was going to plan on doing something with a Gladiator at a later time. But I had some high clearance Gladiator links. And what I ended up doing was taking the rear high clearance links from the Gladiator, and I put those on the rear of my Deadbolt. So I extended the length in my rear and I extended the length in my front. And after doing all that, I put my wheelbase now okay, my wheelbase is now, I hope you can see that on camera, but I am just a little over 6 3/4 inches. So by making the wheelbase on the Deadbolt 6 3/4 inches, it's now 3/4 of an inch longer than the Gladiator. So that's just looking at it from the top. You can tell just by looking at this, the Deadbolt now is quite a bit longer. Got a longer wheelbase than the Gladiator. That's crazy. So while I was replacing the links on the Deadbolt, I had an extra set of RC all-wheel drive portal axles. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and throw some portaled axles on here, give it a little bit better ground clearance since I'm making it so long. The stock shocks were nowhere near long enough to reach from the top mounting point down to the axle. So I ended up going with Endura 43mm shocks. Puts my front shocks at a lot better angle, gives it better articulation. I really like that. On the rear, my rear extension wasn't quite as extreme as what I did to the front. And so my rear shocks, after I put the Gladiator links in the back, they wasn't exactly straight up and down like they normally are. They did have somewhat of an angle back to them, but not much. And what that was doing, it was causing my rear end to be up quite a bit taller than my front. So all I did was take the mounting bracket that you mount the top of your shock to, I unscrewed it from my frame and I moved it up one hole. And by doing that, I was able to move my shock mount from right here to right here, and which gave it more of a tilted angle. And that did lower my rear end. The rear of the Deadbolt is still slightly higher than the front, but I would rather have the rear a little higher as opposed to the front. So it actually worked out pretty well. Okay, after I put my rear links up to the front, my front drive shaft was nowhere near long enough. And every time you buy an SCX24, you get a little bag of extra parts. And normally I just throw those parts in a box and just kind of forget about them. But I happened to rummage through my bag of extra parts, and I did find a drive shaft that was a little bit longer than the stock drive shaft that's on the Deadbolt. I don't know if it was from a rear drive shaft from one of these other SCX24s or what. But in short, your front section of the drive shaft, it fits in to the rear. Your rear section that connects to the motor is a hollow tube. This front section fits into the hollow tube. So whenever I fit this front section into the tube of the rear part of the drive shaft, everything looked like it was going to work fine. I connected my two links to the back of the servo bracket, and when I tried to bring back my axle to connect to my lower links, I couldn't get it back to the links because that drive shaft tube was actually a bit too long. So all I ended up doing was I ended up pulling that piece back out of the tube part of the drive shaft, and I just put a Dremel on the tube part of the drive shaft, and I just Dremeled it down a little bit to shorten it up. I don't know if you can see that in the video. There's still a little bit of residue left over. I didn't clean it up. Actually, I probably could have shortened it up a tad bit more. But after doing that, I put that piece back into the tube section of the drive shaft, and it was able to reach my links just fine. And on the rears, obviously the rears was nowhere near long enough. The rear drive shaft was nowhere near long enough to match up to the Gladiator links. But luckily, I had some spare drive shaft parts from a Gladiator. So all I did, I put on Gladiator rear links, and I just replaced that one section of drive shaft with a Gladiator drive shaft, and everything worked out great. Don't know how well it's going to perform yet. I wish it had a little bit of ground clearance. I mean, it's so long, it kind of sags a tad bit in the center. But basically, that's all I did to it. And anytime you're, again, stretching the front end of your Deadbolt, just know if it gets kind of complicated and if you don't have any spare parts, if you just get the front link set up from one of the other RCs, from a C10 or a Bronco, all you need to do is just take your front links off your Deadbolt and just use the front links from one of those other RCs and put in its place. And that's going to lengthen your Deadbolt a little bit. I don't know how much it will lengthen it to where you'll have to do any trimming on the front end of your RC. Obviously on mine, I had to do a lot of trimming because of the extension on the length was quite so drastic. But either way, I'm happy with it. I'm really liking the long wheelbase. I'm going to take it out on the course, put it on some obstacles that I put some clips up on in the last video where it was struggling. See if it can do any better. Folks, stay tuned. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, I got it out on the course. First little obstacle I'm going to run it up is Odie's Ridge. It didn't really have any problems on this obstacle before. And now it's, come on, baby. Yeah, I'm trying to take the hardest line that I can. I could have bypassed that, but no problem. Yeah, and this isn't the most difficult obstacle in the world. Some of the stuff here on my course isn't, but I wanted to kind of keep it to where at least some of my less capable RCs could still do it. But I mean, I got some obstacles here on the course that less capable RCs can't do at all. No problem so far. Yeah, it looks kind of ugly, but again, it's a rock buggy. Rock buggies aren't meant to be pretty. And I goofed around a little bit on this section last night. This little section I call Devil's Crack. Got that big crack in it right there. I kind of want to get an RC built up enough to where it can make this climb right here. Deadbolt isn't quite there yet, it would appear. I mean, it's got a real bad off camber. As you're climbing up, it inclines real bad, or it declines to the left. And it kind of slides you sideways as you're trying to climb it, so. But I'm gonna try to figure out some way of adding a lot more weight to his front end to see if I can eventually, and even if I did get him up to the top, I don't know how it would. Oh, well, no, that wasn't it. Okay, let's just get you out of here. Get you onto the sections that we can see if we can add any improvement on or not. I'm trying to drive and record at the same time. Yeah, this is coming up on this section was one of the sections he had a little bit of trouble with, but was still able to do it. It just took him a few minutes, so let's see if what we can do with it now. Come on. Bam. Yeah, he just, I'll put up a clip of him trying to, well, I mean, you can check out my last video. It's on there where he took me a while to get Deadbolt up and over that. And then what he just went down, I can get the shorter wheelbase RCs up that as well. But it's tough. It takes it a few minutes. Takes me a few minutes to get the shorter wheelbase RCs up this ledge right here. And again, this is another ledge that the Deadbolt, or excuse me, the Gladiator just goes up like it's a walk in the park. So we'll see what he's got now with the longer wheelbase. If I can get him up on it. Yeah, apparently getting up on it's the tricky part. There it is. And it's no problem. No problem. Yeah, that's the section I call the bridge. I'm not going to fool with that right now. He does that pretty easy. But I am going to get him back down here to Rocket Rock. This is a section that he was not able to do. I keep calling him a he like that's an actual person, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, my Deadbolt and all my short wheelbase RCs cannot get up this at all. So now that I've, and again, you can see that in previous videos. I put up a clip on my last video with the Gladiator. The Gladiator goes up this pretty easy. But let's just see if the improvements gets the Deadbolts up this now. I mean, it's just sick. It's just sick. That thing is a beast. I accidentally backed him off. Trying to get my recorder, my camera set up to drive at the same time while I'm videoing. So let's just drive up it again. Look how easy that is. It's just sick. He might have a problem here being so long, might turtle, but and he makes it right through that, no problem. Let's see how he does coming from the side. This will put him a little off camber, but might make it a little more interesting, a little more challenging. Flex, baby, flex. Come on. No problem. Okay, on my last video, the section on a little camel that all these short wheelbase RCs were having trouble on, I put up a clip of the Gladiator cowboy going up it backwards, showing off. See if I can get a little show off here on this one. I've got the wrong line. Yeah, as of yesterday, couldn't get the Deadbolt up this at all. Today, might not be going up it backwards. May not have that. I can just get him lined up, correct? Come on. Oh, you're kidding me. I usually don't drive it backwards anyway, so if you don't make it, that's okay. Look at that, look at that, look at that.